Welcome to episode 87. As always, I'm so glad you're here. I'm hoping you're managing to stay cool wherever you are, because in the UK we're having another heat wave, so it is feeling a little bit warm. Anyway, I have had time this week to record another podcast interview for you all, and I'm joined in episode 87 by one of my lovely former clients, Sarah Holey, a senior HR leader with an incredible career journey. She has led the people functions in international multi-site customer-facing businesses, the kind where culture is built on the shop floor as much as in the head office, and where people strategy has to drive commercial results, not just support them. Over 12 plus years, she's built and scaled HR across EMEA, the Americas, Middle East and APAC, with employment law experience spanning 16 countries. She sat at the table with CEOs, presidents and finance leaders to solve the problem that matter most in people-heavy businesses. Motivating your frontline teams, retaining talent in high turnover environments, navigating restructures with care, and turning engagement into measurable performance. She has a big job. Now, what really stood out to me about Sarah's story is her journey towards becoming a more authentic leader. She shares how she moved from feeling she needed to adapt herself to fit traditional expectations of leadership to recognising that her collaborative, thoughtful approach was not a limitation, it was a strength. We explore what happens when leaders stop trying to be someone else and start trusting the value they bring. We also talk about the power of proactive coaching, building confidence when stepping into a bigger role, influencing senior stakeholders, and why knowing and trusting yourself is key to being the leader you really want to be. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Sarah, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk to me.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Can you just start off with, tell us a little bit about your current role?
In my current role, I lead the retail people function for an international retail group. Within the parent group, we have 3 very different brands, and under my remit, I look after a total population of around 1,800 store employees across many different markets in EMEA and also the US. Me and my team are quite generalist in our roles. We cover everything with the exception of talent acquisition and payroll, luckily. And so we cover everything from how we grow our people to also how we build a culture across teams that span many different countries and many different cultures as well. It's an interesting role.
Yeah, it sounds very broad and very big role. 1,800 employees is a lot of people to look after. And I know you've had an interesting career journey as well through various high-end luxury retailers. And I also know that your original degree was in textiles. It wasn't in human resources management or anything like that. So I wonder if you could tell everybody a little bit about how you moved from that textiles into fashion, HR.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that I did printed textiles, and it always takes people really by surprise. Everyone probably thinks, how on earth have you got from being a designer to head of people? I really loved my time at university, but by the end of my degree, I definitely knew that I didn't want to become a print designer. I've still kept in touch with all of my uni pals, and they're all doing such creative, beautiful roles. And yes, I have ended up in HR, but it didn't start off in HR actually. So after I graduated, because I knew I didn't want to be a print designer, I needed to take some time out to really decide what I actually wanted to do. But I also needed to earn some money. So I picked up a sales assistant role in retail. And what took me completely by surprise is how much I absolutely loved being on the shop floor, and I genuinely think to this day it's what shaped me and the reason I'm in HR for a retail brand today. I totally get what it's like to be working on the floor, on your feet, 8 hours a day, dealing with difficult customers. So when I talk about my people strategy, I have lived that reality, and I think it does go a long way. So I relocated to London about 13 years ago, and that was the sales assistant role that I took when I graduated. And it was at that point my manager asked if I wanted to be the people person, and this is how you know how the HR function has changed over a decade, because I'm not sure it would be the same today. So that people person on the shop floor, I was responsible for things like recruitment, on and offboarding, health and safety was even a people person, all the way through to performance management, learning and development. And I suppose I was that main point of contact between the flagship store on Regent Street to the HR function in head office. And that's where I started to get a bit of a flavour of what it could be like to work in a head office for a HR function. So fast forward 12, nearly 13 years ago, I've worked with quite a few brands, and I would say I've taken quite a traditional route in terms of my career. So I've started off as an administrator, then moved into an advisor, HR business partner role, then finally to more strategic director, head level roles. And I've always stayed in retail.
Yeah, I think if you've got that love for retail, and obviously it does tie in with your degree, but I think that being on the shop floor, having lived the jobs that you are providing the HR support for, it makes a huge difference to really understanding the ins and outs and what people are experiencing, and therefore your people strategy is definitely going to be shaped more effectively. But also it's quite quick, isn't it, over 12, 13 years from shop floor to head of people in a global organisation. What would you say were perhaps the turning points that either gave you that big leap or pushed you into something new?
I mean, I would definitely say there was a couple of pivotal moments in my career, one being when I moved from shop floor to head office. But I think one of the more recent ones was when I took on a role from being very UK-centric to tapping into the international market. So overnight I went from being responsible for one market to 16 different markets, and I went from being an extremely confident and definitely had a sense of being a real expert in that field to overnight not knowing anything at all. Kind of went back to that beginner mode. And I would say, if I'm being completely honest, it probably knocked my confidence more than I realised at the time. And it took me a long time to know that it was okay not to know everything, and that there was not any shame in saying, do you know what, I don't actually know the answer to that question. So I'd say that change in direction has made me probably more confident in the long run. It's definitely made me more curious, and I think that skill takes you much further than being an expert in a particular topic.
It is interesting, isn't it? Looking back, you can see the value of that experience, but at the time,
it's
like so overwhelming. I mean, to go from being the expert in one market and then, as you say, having 16, but people expect you still to have the same level of knowledge. Would you do anything differently, do you think, in that situation now, looking back? Would you have approached it differently if you were faced with that big learning curve again?
I don't know whether I'd have approached it differently, because it felt like I was thrown in. Obviously, I had a choice whether to accept the additional responsibilities, but they came quite quick, and what felt like overnight probably in reality was quite overnight as well. So I don't know whether I would change the approach. I just think I wouldn't have punished, sounds a strong word, but I don't think I would have been so self-critical of not knowing everything. I think probably to start off with it slowed me down. So if I could talk to a younger version of myself, I definitely would have told myself to have more confidence in yourself and reassurance that, you know, even the most senior people, execs in a room, they may come across like they know everything, but in reality is they don't know everything, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant lesson to learn, isn't it? That actually it's okay to say I don't know, and also to show yourself self-compassion. We're always so hard on ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah.
But self-compassion is so valuable because it just helps you to approach things from a kinder place than that critical voice. And we started working together last year, didn't we? End of last year. What was it, do you think, that brought you to coaching? What was it that you thought, yeah, I'm going to get some coaching to help me with this?
So I've had a coach before, and at that moment it was definitely a reactive decision where I was in a place where my confidence was spiraling. It was impacting my relationships in the workplace. But for this occasion, the reason why I approached you, Sarah, is because I was wanting to be a bit more proactive, and I'm starting this new job that I'm currently in, and I really wanted the support in you helping me navigate my first few months in a new role. And really, honestly, it was not because I was doing something wrong or I was in a place of fear. It was just because I knew that the stakes were higher and I wanted to figure that out with someone that I could fully trust.
So almost setting yourself up for success rather than, as you say, being reactive of, okay, I'm struggling here, I need to get some help, but actually taking a more strategic approach to it by saying, I want to feel confident going into all of those different scenarios and have some strategies to utilise if I need them.
Exactly, and one thing that I don't think people tell you is that the more senior you get, well, in my experience anyway, it can be lonely at some time. Having that safe space to be able to really talk about anything and everything without having to figure out how it lands is so invaluable.
And it's a theme with a lot of the clients that I've interviewed, is that the senior you get, the more people expect you to have all the answers, to be super confident, to not have those worries or doubts or worry about the challenges you might face because you're at a senior level. But it's not the case, is it?
No, it doesn't go away, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you get better at managing it, don't you? You get more skilled at actually being able to notice what's going on and then put things into place. And so for you, the coaching this time, what would you say was a difference that it made to you?
Okay, so going back a step actually, so my previous role to the one that I'm in, to the one that I wanted your support with, I'd been there for over 5 years. I think I would say it was the most success I've had in a particular business. I'd had about 3 promotions, about 6 different role changes, probably even more managers than that. So it was a really incredible career journey for me, and actually leaving that or for something on paper, people would probably think, why are you leaving this company? Because it's a very well-known brand. My career was accelerating. I started off at HR man and left at director level. Probably people thought I was completely mad, leaving and taking on something different. For me, by asking for your support, I really wanted that space with sometimes no agenda. Could have said anything to you without thinking about how it's perceived. I also knew that I was entering into a business where I had no established relationships. So that safety completely went that I had in my previous business. And perhaps there was a little part of my imposter syndrome coming out where I thought, God, if I left a business that I was doing so well in, could I start a new business and it go completely wrong? Could they think, why have they hired me? So I was really keen to seek your support to make sure that I was able to build really strong relationships with my stakeholders and to make sure that I was making real impact.
Yeah, and it can be challenging, can't it, when you are leaving, as you say, a company where you've had a lot of success and then you're moving somewhere completely new and having to re-establish yourself and start delivering. And there's obviously lots of things to deliver in people strategy. It's never a smooth ride in HR. There's always lots to do. So to get that support, I think, is really valuable and proactive and positioning yourself well.
The stakes were high for me, and it needed to work.
Yeah. And what would you say has been the biggest leadership lesson in your career or in that shift from your last role to this role?
One of the biggest lessons I've learned over time is that it links specifically with stakeholders whose style is really different from mine. This has been a real challenge for me to navigate over the years. I'm a very collaborative person. I would say that I'm quite measured as well. And in retail, in rooms full of senior execs, more time than none. You'll probably be sitting opposite someone who's very direct, someone that's extremely fast paced and will push very hard in the room. And in those moments, I definitely have second guessed myself. Have I been too soft? Am I not commercial enough? Or probably in occasions, I could have even told myself, am I senior enough to be here, to be in this room, to be at this table? And over the years, as I've got older and wiser, and I definitely would say during our time together, Sarah, my mindset has shifted. And I definitely learnt to respect myself as a leader and my style. I know I don't need to match their style to earn their respect. I think that's a really key part of being a confident leader. I really need to trust my style and know, and this is something that I've got from you, Sarah, know that my approach is an asset to the business, not a gap.
I love that, because I think we sometimes have a vision in our head of the successful leader, and it can be, as you described, that person who's very fast-paced, very direct, maybe a bit alpha in the old-fashioned way of describing leaders, and actually that recognition that there are lots of different leadership styles and personality styles that bring equal value and can sometimes be good counterweights to some of those more fast-paced, direct, quick decision makers. So I think that's a really great point that you've brought out as a reflective piece.
I think there is such a superpower in not being that person that fills silence, and there is such power in being the last person to speak in a room as well.
Yeah. I love that you've got these techniques now that you can feel confident utilising, because I think sometimes, particularly for women leaders, that speaking in the room, that making an impact in the room can be one of the biggest challenges. Is there any other advice you would give to people who are maybe moving into that first leadership role or having to navigate some challenging in the room? Anything else you'd say?
I think if you are about to embark on a leadership role, you have to be really clear on what your values are. Now, creating values could be quite an easy exercise for someone, but sticking to them is a lot harder. But if you are really clear on who you are as a leader and you have the confidence to live and breathe by them, I think that will make your world, your life in the workplace a lot easier. And I think I learnt the hard way, and I think I tried to adapt myself too much to some of my senior stakeholders in previous businesses, to a place where I was being someone that I wasn't being true to myself, or I was putting myself in a place where I was extremely uncomfortable and operating outside of my style, which can be quite exhausting, physically exhausting. It didn't lead to burnout, but it could have done easily if I didn't capture myself. So I think, that would be the advice to someone who's about to embark on a leadership role.
That's really powerful advice, because the whole values piece, they are your kind of North Star in a way, aren't they? They do guide your decisions, guide your approach. And you're right, if you are forced to step away from them or inhabit something that isn't true to them, it does become physically and mentally exhausting, for sure. So I think that's really powerful. Thank you. And if we just pop back to the coaching, if someone was thinking about having some coaching and they weren't sure about it, what would you say to them?
I honestly think coaching is for anyone, whether you're in that place where you really, not crisis, but I mean, you could be in a crisis, but it's a moment where you really need that support in the moment to get you through a particular situation in the workplace. Or it could be you're in my position to see it as a growth opportunity. But if someone was really unsure as to whether or not coaching was for them, I'd probably be a coach in that situation and ask them lots of questions to try and unpick what their hesitation was, to remove or reduce those barriers, because coaching is for everyone. I truly believe that.
Yes, I definitely concur with that point of view, Sarah. And just briefly, how would you describe working with me?
I would say that working with you, Sarah, is my safe space. We haven't known each other for a long time, but we were able to establish a relationship quickly, which has meant that I've been able to really talk to you about anything and everything, which has been hugely valuable to me. I'd also say that our conversations have not been easy, as in you've really challenged me and you've really pushed me to think differently. So don't think you're about to embark on a coaching session that comes easily. So yeah, I would describe it as safe and challenging.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad safe was the first thing
Yes.
you said, though, and that the challenge came after the safety.
The challenge in a good way.
Definitely. And then if I can just ask you, what's one word that would describe your leadership style now?
Authentic.
Oh, I love that. That is really nice.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I think there was probably time in my previous role where it wasn't as authentic as I wanted to be, because I think I was trying to prove myself too much to some of my senior stakeholders, and that did me no favours. I'm far happier, more comfortable in my own skin being an authentic leader. What you see is what you get from me.
Yeah, and I love that. And when it's tied to your values as well, it's really powerful, really powerful. Sarah, you'll be pleased to know this is my last question for you. What does being unstuck and unstoppable mean to you?
To me, unstuck isn't about being dramatic. It's a lot quieter than that. I think it's in the moment you stop performing at a version of yourself that isn't working for you anymore. A saying that I say all the time to myself and to my team: what gets you here won't necessarily get you there. So when you say the word unstuck to me, that's exactly what I think about. And being unstoppable for me is about never doubting yourself.
I really love that as well. Very powerful. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, Sarah. If people wanted to contact you, are you happy for them to reach out on LinkedIn? Shall I put your LinkedIn?
I would love connect with others in the HR profession and have further conversations. Would love that.
Fantastic. I will put Sarah's LinkedIn profile link in the show notes. So just again, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your career journey with everybody.
Thank you, Sarah.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Sarah and took away some valuable insights about what it really means to step into leadership with confidence and authenticity. One of my biggest reflections from our conversation is that leadership isn't about becoming a different version of yourself. It's about understanding your strengths, trusting your style, and recognising that the qualities that make you different may actually be the things that create the greatest impact. I particularly loved Sarah's reminder that what gets you here won't necessarily get you there. As we grow in our careers, we often need to let go of old ways of working, old beliefs about what success looks like, and the pressure to prove ourselves, so we can step into a more authentic version of leadership. So if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love you to subscribe to Unstuck and Unstoppable, share this episode with another ambitious woman who might need to hear this message, and leave a review. It really helps more women find the podcast. And if you yourself are at a career crossroads, stepping into a bigger leadership role, or feeling like there's more potential inside you that you haven't yet unlocked, then head over to Career Tree Coaching, where you can find resources and support to help you get clear, confident and visible. The link to the website is in the show notes. And remember, you don't have to become someone else to succeed. You just have to step it fully into who you already are.